I'm Jeffrey Overstreet, and I teach film classes, creative writing classes, and academic writing classes at Seattle Pacific.
Are we going to be talking about movies? I love movies!
And with me this morning is Associate Professor of Theology Brian Bantam, who is also the author of 2 books, The Death of Race, Building a New Christianity in a Racial World, and Redeeming Mulatto, a Theology of Race and Christian Hybridity.
Oh, so we're going to be talking about religious films with a racial component? Like maybe The Color Purple? Or, a bit on the lighter side, The Preacher's Wife?
So it's my privilege this morning.
But is it a white privilege? Huh? My mom thinks I'm funny.
To hear from an expert on many of the questions explored in Black Panther.
Black Panther. Questions explored. As relates to religion? Okay. Is this at all drawing from the Wakanda curriculum that I did a video about a few months ago? But, okay, I cannot deny that I am curious. What does a comic book superhero movie have to teach us in regards to religion and race?
Thanks, Jeff. I am really excited about Black Panther, both in terms of, obviously, just its success. So to see something that's been done by with an African-American director, writer, cast, and to have it be received like so enthusiastically, I think is just an incredible affirmation of Black art and Black intellectual life and Black beauty.
Yes. Films directed by, written by, and starring Black people, which are then well received, have never existed prior to Black Panther. Got it.
But I think at the same time, even in the midst of that, it's not hagiography. You know, it's not an idealization.
Black Panther is not an idealization. A cloistered, futuristic African nation led by a super-powered king wearing a bulletproof supersuit is not an idealization. Got it.
And it actually, part of what's so cathartic about it is it captures the fundamental questions I think that mark Black existence kind of in a post-colonial world, which is, what do we do with the privilege that we have, and how do we overcome the challenges and the racism and the legacies that shape our lives? And that those aren't easy questions to answer. And in a way, there's no good way to address it. Every option is kind of fraught in its own way. And so I appreciated the fact that the film just dragged us right into the middle of that question and didn't try to dance around it.
That is a lot to unpack, and I'm not at all sure what he's talking about. But, okay, what do we do with the privilege that we have? Well, all right, Wakanda was keeping itself hidden and its technology secret from the rest of the world when they could have been using it to help others. So, I guess there is a message about isolationism and selfishness there. Though, that all seemed to take a back seat to things blowing up and the convoluted tribal politics of a fictitious comic book country. Oh, but here I am trying to rationalize the events of a comic book to real-world problems. Let's see if our speaker will tell us what he means.
Films like this feel like they give us new vocabularies, new ways to talk about things.
Guys, seriously. It was a comic book movie. Granted, it was a Marvel comic book movie, so it was bound to make gadzooks amounts of money, and the hype of it made it even more profitable. But as a Marvel fan, I would place it alongside the first Guardians of the Galaxy and maybe Thor Ragnarok. It was a fun, relatively well-made, goofy comic book movie, but it was not any kind of cinematic excellence or anything.
Can you talk about any specifics in the film?
Yes, please do. Specifics. Those would be good.
I think one of the things that that I hear over and over again and that I loved about it was just the strength and the power of Black women in the film, especially.
Yeah, definitely.
And the ways in which the kind of quote-unquote hero, T'Challa, at the end really does need a wider community of folks in order to both come to a kind of realization of what it is that he ought to do, but to actually make it come into fruition, right?
Right.
It's not this kind of singular individual who's going to overcome, but it is very much a kind of communal kind of vision of what does it mean that what is it that we ought to be in that way.
Okay, so aside from our speaker specifying strong, powerful Black women there, nothing of what he said is unique to mini-stories, let alone superhero stories. Imagine this scenario for a moment. A lone individual trying to take on the weight of the world, but finding out that they are not alone, or don't have to go it alone, and/or that they have inspired their community to get behind them in their struggles. If any of what I just said reminds you of more than one other story you may have ever seen or read, then yeah. The only notable thing from our speaker's first example is strong, powerful Black women. And that doesn't do much for making Black Panther all that remarkable.
So on April 6th, we've discussed Black Panther with students, with other faculty, and we would like to share some of the conversation with you, where we wrestled some of the questions raised by this film.
Ooh, this ought to be a treat, given that the only questions I had after watching the film were, how long do I have to sit here until the after-credits scene, and how is this going to lead into Infinity War?
Welcome, everybody. It's so good to see so many people. This is awesome.
Getting to skip actual schoolwork to sit and talk about a comic book movie? You're surprised that a lot of students decided to take part. Got it.
Yes, my name is Dr. Brian Bantam, and I teach theology here, as well as co-direct the newly launching Social Justice and Cultural Studies major.
A Social Justice and Cultural Studies major. I think we may have discovered an area of study even more useless than communications.
So that's one of the things I loved about the movie, was the fact that it was willing to kind of tell that subtleties and even show that that subtlety was not just between two individuals, but within the community, right?
Right.
That the community was trying to figure out who should we follow and how do we live into this. So in all of those ways, really beautiful.
Okay, there wasn't much of a decision to make there. The entire backbone of Wakanda's succession of leadership depended on who could successfully beat up one another. About as undemocratic and uncivilized a process as you could imagine. And it was especially unbelievable given the scientific and technological nature inherent to Wakandan society. once Killmonger won the fight, debate was over. It wasn't until T'Challa showed up alive again that there was even a question as to who to follow. And at that point, it was just a brief civil war, not exactly a shining example of discourse and philosophical struggle.
But the thing that I felt felt hard about it, though, was in some ways that was the easy move to make. It was the easy move to make. Well, what do I mean by this? Well, notice the really subtle shift of the CIA figure, right?
Right.
From being the person that wanted to kind of basically invade Wakanda. Has anybody seen the animated series, 6-part series released? I think it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. BET just reran it. So look up Black Panther. It's part of the Marvel Knights of Marvel series.
Do you mean the Marvel Knights motion comic series? Yup, I have seen it. Though save for a couple of characters and situations that are pretty much inherent to Black Panther's origin story, it's not related to the movie version much at all. So, what about it?
So interesting. They made some very different decisions in that one. So in that one, you kind of open up and you find out what Wakanda is, and then you switch to the White House. And in the White House we found a large deposit of vibranium underneath this mysterious jungle. they call it Wakanda. How should we get in there? How can we topple the government? They have a person named Donda Lisi or something like this, and so it's basically the Bush White House, and so you see like basically a plot to intervene in the power struggle, to take advantage of it and take over Wakanda's resources, right?
Right. A plot line that is not a part of the movie version. Why are we talking about this again?
So that's not what this movie did, right?
Right.
The CI guy is kind of the bumbling, I don't really know, white guy who's well-meaning, managed to fly an alien ship like almost instantly, and is a really like lovely comedic foil. Yay, CIA! Right?
Right. The white guy government agent was made into a punchline. He was turned into comic relief. His authority and stature were diminished and undercut. So, you would have preferred him to be in charge of things? And giving orders? Or being an antagonist? Also, he was only able to fly the plane at the end of the movie because of Wakandan technology. So, even in that instance, he was beholden to the genius of his hosts. So, what exactly are we complaining about?
So in a way, what the movie did was actually take kind of the easy way out by saying, we're actually going to talk about our internal conflict rather than talk about the reality that made this conflict necessary, which is colonialism, white supremacy, and an enduring colonial state that continues to abuse dark peoples of the world.
What? What are you talking about? The reality that made this conflict necessary was colonialism, white supremacy, and an enduring colonial state that abuses dark peoples of the world. Did our speaker even watch the movie? The primary conflict of the film was Black Panther versus Killmonger, the heir apparent to the former king versus the renegade son of the former king's brother. A brother who the former king murdered, by the way. Killmonger had a relatively logical motivation to make a vengeful claim to his birthright, and the Wakandan system of succession was required to let that happen because the Wakandan system of government is stupid. So, our speaker is upset that the movie focused on the culture and conflict taking place within Wakanda itself. He would have rather had the villain be the American government, as represented by the white CIA agent. The movie did not send the message he would have preferred, and that is that white people are bad people. And our speaker is the person leading the way for a social justice and cultural studies major, wherein, I assume, one will be taught of the inherent weaknesses and virtue of dark peoples and the inherent strength and evil of white people. And as part of the course materials, there will be a cartoon about a fictional king given superpowers by a magic metal who must protect his fictional nation from evil white men. Sounds like an excellent way to spend one's tuition money. And I am sure such an education has so many, many career prospects in the future. I wish I was being sarcastic there, because if our speaker has taught us nothing else today, it is that there is a strong market these days for promoting hatred and division, especially in education. As always, thank you for watching.